really watched this team, I mean, like, really watch this team and just really pays attention and even rewatches games after you're done being frustrated and seeing what the real problem is. The real problem for Miami, truly, is a mixture of things, but the main portion is quarterback. It is. It's quarterback. Because back when we had Brad Kaya, if Brad Kaya would have been a little bit more mobile, he would have been an absolutely, probably one of, that's a bold statement, a really good quarterback that came out of Miami. I'll put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the truth. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people continue to say that the O-line's bad, and the stats obviously show number-wise. But if you look at the scheme that they were put in, I mean, if you have let's just say you have an offensive line that's struggling and you have a quarterback that can't even back it up or help out, is a pro-style offense going to help that? Absolutely not. Play actions under center, all that stuff, it's not going to help.
Sure.
And it showed last season. You know what I'm saying? So I really, I think our O-line is going to be better this year because of the scheme more than development as players, because player development has always kind of lacked at Miami, in my honest opinion, besides maybe corners, which we don't recruit well, but for some reason we can really develop. But yeah, that's my honest opinion on that. You know what I'm saying?
So if you look at the offensive line play for the last 3 or 4 years, and you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, and if most elite teams in college football have offensive line play that's an 8 or a 9, where do you think Miami's offensive line has performed?
Say that again. You broke up. I'm sorry.
Just in regards to if you were going to rate the Miami offensive line from 1 to 10.
I would rate them probably a 6, an honest 6, because looking at the scheme, I mean, if you can't get plays going and you continually run the same thing, your play actions under center, which are double slow developing, especially when you can't have a quarterback who can read receivers, and that causes sacks because he holds onto the ball too long. Because I've seen plenty of plays, especially against Florida, I can't stop thinking about it, of how many times Jeff Thomas and we had receivers wide open. You know what I'm saying? And that comes with his youth, but at the same time, that's just pointing that out to make sure that people who are being so narrow-minded and just pointing that, oh, it's this, it's that, you know what I'm saying? It's a group of things, but the biggest thing, in my opinion, was play calling, and that's why we made an adjustment with a transfer quarterback, and then most importantly, Rhett Lashley finally going to a spread, which is, I think, really good for Miami.
So, Hurricane Logan, you know this so much better than I do, watching this team and dissecting it. Like you say, going back and watching the game for a second time, but I watch Miami play 7, 8, 9 times a year. I would say that Brad Kaya was, and I would do my quarterback ratings at the time, that he was a top 15 quarterback in the country. And yeah, mobility was not a strong suit, but if he would have had really, really good offensive line play, they might have been able to tear it up and really win some significant games. So it just seemed like he was under siege most of the time.
Yeah, like I said, if Brad Kaya was mobile like Malik Rozier was, but Brad Kaya was Brad Kaya, I'm telling you, man, I wish he would have stayed one more year. I remember going to the West Virginia Bowl game when we finally won it, and he held the trophy up, and I'm telling you, the whole stadium of people who were staying there were literally screaming one more year altogether. You know what I'm saying? And when you sit there and you watch games like that and you even dissect how good of a quarterback he was, you know, we really needed him. And it showed when we got Malik Rozier, who was a baseball player, honestly should not have been a quarterback at Miami. And then I think it showed with Jaron Williams, who I don't think was a terrible quarterback. He was young. That was his first season, and he opened up against Florida in a neutral site. You know what I'm saying? And Florida did have a good defense. So I think Jaron Williams would have been better or had a better chance if he was in a scheme like Lashley's, because with the way our offensive line is and our quarterback talent and experience, a pro-style offense doesn't work. And the numbers speak for themselves. It hasn't worked. You know what I'm saying? So that's my honest opinion. I think that a nice shotgun spread, getting these receivers in space, our receivers can block. That's one thing. I mean, especially I remember back with Barrios. I mean, that's one thing our receivers can't do is they can block. So I think if we can get that going, you know, we're not going to know until we see us play. Even a team like Temple, it's going to show, because I don't think a lot of people are humbled by the fact that we We were terrible last year. We lost to nobodies. Honestly, nobodies. LA Tech. I don't even remember the damn FCS team that kept up with us and could have beat us on the last drive. You know what I'm saying? So you can't sit there and say that our performance against Temple is going to show who we had the potential to be this season because of who we lost to last year. I don't know, man. I'm not a delusional Miami fan, and I hate to say it, but I think a lot of Miami fans are. And there's a lot of people I think that would humbly agree with me. And every year it's like championship. We're gonna, we go from 6 and 7, and now people are automatically saying, oh, we're gonna win the championship, or we're gonna go to the ACC. And it's like, I understand the hype, because we made key changes that we needed, but they still have to get that chemistry going, and it's not going to happen in an off season. It might not happen in one season. You know what I'm saying? It takes time, and people don't understand that. And that goes into all the coaching changes we've had. You know what I'm saying? When you constantly get different coaches and you get different styles of leadership to train these kids, coach them, different schemes, that does everything to recruiting, to people leaving the team, to them having to adjust again. So we just need to stick with what we got and just see how it rides out. You know what I'm saying?
So what would be a reasonably successful season for you?
8 wins, at least 8 wins. And obviously not losing to a bogus team. You know what I'm saying? That would be a reasonable season for me. Would it still be disappointing for me personally? Yeah, it sucked because obviously I love Miami. I want us to win every game. But realistically speaking, 8 or 9 wins, especially with our schedule, because a lot of people are talking about Michigan State, that's going to be a tough one. I mean, Michigan State is not that good. They're not how they used to be.
Sure.
But then again, we lost to Louisiana Tech, so who knows?
Yeah, and FIU and Duke.
Yeah, I forgot about those guys.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I say Jay Love T called in here, and he's predicting 11-1. And while I look at the schedule and look at the individual games and say, does Miami have the talent to go 11-1? Absolutely. But I said the same thing last year when it looked like Florida and Florida State were the only 2 teams that had rosters that could compete with you. I still thought this team's still going to screw up a handful of games. So I picked 8-4 last year, and I even shot it too high.
Yeah. Yep. We will see this year, though. I am excited. I'm anxious. I want to see all this talk. What Lashley did. Whatever he did where he was, if that comes to Miami, and it's not magically different, because for some reason that happens too when players and coaches get here, it's not what they were. If that can come here and De'Aaron King can be who he was when he was playing, then I'm really excited, truthfully. But it needs to be the best players on the field and none of what some people are saying. I don't know if it's true with the whole politics and favoritism. I don't know. Like I said, the whole Perry nonsense, I really don't buy into it. I personally don't think Perry would start at many other schools. And a lot of people are going to hate me for saying that, but that's just my opinion. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that's what I think. And we've seen it on the field.
Well, to me, I don't think there was any question that he looked like the more confident quarterback, the more loose and capable quarterback in commanding the huddle and just throwing the ball with confidence and conviction, where Jaron Williams looked a little gun shy and a little hesitant in where he was going with the football.
Yeah, our offense definitely seemed more fluent when he was in the huddle. And I'm the first one to sit here and say that I think Perry should have started game 1, and I think he should have played the whole season. But that doesn't mean that I think he is a great quarterback. I just think he was our best option. I didn't think Tate was. I didn't think Jaron Williams was. And we all know when Perry was in the game, even the year that he came back and beat Florida State practically himself, our offense just looked much more fluent and like it had a little bit more of a rhythm. It wasn't just lost in the sauce.
And I know that there were some things that N'Kosi Perry did off the field that didn't put him in the good graces of Mark Richt. But if the season before, once it was determined, it was pretty easy to see that it wasn't going anywhere, that you would have sat down the senior, Malik Rozier, played N'Kosi Perry, and built something for the next year.
Exactly. That's exactly what I said, man. That is exactly what I said. And every time Perry came in, it was not the best situation. It was never. It was usually on our own goal line, and when the game was already lost or when the team was already done, pretty much. Like you could tell they didn't want to play. That's when Perry would finally come in, and that nothing helped with that. I feel bad for the way Perry was done at Miami, and I even feel bad for the way Jeff Thomas was done at Miami. Even though there were, like you said, off-field issues, you can't sit there and in a conference as a coach and be like, it's a fresh start, blah blah blah, and then you don't see it on the field. That's not a good look for you as a leader.
There you go. All right, Hurricane Logan.
I'm hoping for at least 8 wins.
Sure.
But, I mean, with all the changes, I'm not going to predict anything until I see us play good old Temple.
Okay. So. All right, that sounds good. Man, I appreciate you. Mark. Thanks for the support. You have a great weekend.
Absolutely. You too.